A statue in the US based on a landmark photograph commemorating the end of World War II seems to have fallen foul of the Me Too movement against sexual harassment. The sculpture in Sarasota in Florida is titled Unconditional Surrender and does depict the moment in 1945 when a soldier kissed a stranger on the day Japan capitulated to the US. Well, it was spray painted with the Me Too hashtag one day after the man depicted in the work, war veteran George Mendonça, died at the age of 95. The image is considered a symbol of the euphoria that gripped the nation at the end of the war. The woman in the photograph said that the sailor drunkenly grabbed her on Times Square and kissed her. Some have suggested that thereby he committed a sexual assault. Well, the iconic kiss was first published in Life magazine, cementing its place in popular culture. The moment on Times Square has been recreated in films and works of art too, as well as on Victory over Japan Day anniversaries. The Me Too movement has a track record of reappraising things from the past. Critics say it sometimes goes too far, though, for example, by condemning everything from Disney fairy tales and classic songs to sitcoms. Women's rights advocate Reese Everson and international law expert Jennifer Breeden were divided over the latest Me Too target.
Absolutely support the Me Too movement in saying this statue does not have right to stand because we have an acknowledgement from the woman, and I believe there's actually an acknowledgement from the man as well that he was drunk and didn't know her. And so if that's the case, then anything that does not reflect who we are trying to become as a country, as a people, it can't stand.
Even if we have statements from the woman that was in the picture, we don't have a lot of the intent. We don't have the context of the time that it occurred in. And so that's the point, is that we're taking this, we're looking at this from a lens of a perspective that we just don't understand today, because we live now in such a divisive time.
Whether she was swept up in the moment or not, we do not see this as a fitting activity to celebrate. In those moments, such as the Confederate flags or the Confederate statues that are being taken down by protesters, in those moments, it's okay for us to look at history and say, this is not who we choose to be.
I mean, there are times, even in the 1960s, if you look at Martin Luther King Jr. and some of these civil rights protests, even the protests for women, I mean, never would vandalism have been okay, especially for Dr. King. His criminal acts were peaceful. They weren't meant to vandalize, to harm. They were meant to prove a point. But I do think it is important that we look at the times now, we continue to move forward,
let's not whitewash
and to try to find a unifying voice.
Let's not do that. When you have to stand up and disband something, that sometimes an upheaval, sometimes violence, sometimes things that we don't like will be required. And don't want to make sure that everyone's placated and comfortable with what we're doing and that it's also politically correct, because change cedes nothing without a demand. If there has to be some discomfort momentarily so that justice can be carried out, then by all means, that's what must be done.
And it's true that the discomfort is going to happen. What I bring up with Dr. King is that he talked about his purpose being to change the laws for the better, for just laws, and because the laws were unjust. We have laws in America today that protect against sexual assault, that protect against unwanted advances that are not consented to. So we have laws today for that, even if we didn't back in 1945. And so I do think it's relevant to bring this up in that context when civil disobedience goes against a law, because it's an unjust law. There is no law here that is unjust. It's a behavior of men that we're seeing in society. And in this instance, it was men from 60 years ago.